Hello everyone and welcome back to J-Town to Go. So we are in New York City, not far from the Empire State Building. We're also next to the Madison Square Garden, and behind me is the new Moynihan Train Hall, because we're going to go there to review Amtrak's Acela Express business class to Washington, D.C. So let's get into it, shall we? This is the Moynihan Train Hall. It opened on January 1st, 2021. This is the new extension of the old Penn Station, which is next door. This station has decent architecture on the outside and looks contemporary on the inside. As you can see on this map, the Moynihan Train Hall is in orange and Penn Station is in blue. The track layout is still the same.
The station to assist you. Please check with the ticket office for baggage assistance or ticket transactions.
This is the main entrance of the station, and it is very clean. The Moynihan Train Hall is mainly for Amtrak and Long Island Railroad passengers.
Attention, Amtrak passengers will be ticket for 63 in route to Toronto.
As you can see, the tables are listed. The timetable that is colorful on the left is for Long Island Railroad trains, while the screen with the blue timetables on the right is for Amtrak trains. TVs of the timetables are also on some of the columns of the station. The one in front of me is for Long Island Railroad trains. Behind the column are several shops, even a Starbucks where we got croissants for our breakfast. This is the Moynihan Food Hall, where there are several restaurants, but they were all not open at the time we arrived. This is actually the cleanest train station I've ever been in my opinion, the most pristine of all train stations in the US.
Attention please. This is a boarding call for Amtrak Northeast Regional Train 190 en route to Boston with intermediate stops at New Rochelle, Stamford, Bridgeport, New Haven, Old Saybrook, New London, Mystic, Westerly, Kingston, Providence, Route 128, Boston Back Bay. Passengers should proceed to track 10.
The TV on this column is a timetable for Amtrak trains. Our train is on the list, the 2151 Acela Express train to Washington, D.C. It will depart at 9 o'clock a.m. This is the Amtrak waiting room where we stayed until our train was called. They have timetables on the columns here as well. There are tables that have power outlets on them. Here's how the table works. When your train is due, it will have a yellow tag that says boarding, and there will be a track number. Our train was on track 7. Then you go out and find your track number on these poles that have the numbers. These are all the stops our train will be stopping in on the way to DC. I hear a Siemens ACS 64 coming. Here's our Acela Express train. It arrived from Boston, which is where it started its southbound run on the Northeast Corridor. Like I said before, we booked business class seats, the lowest accommodation on the Acela. The Acela has both business and first class. Like an airplane, the Acela Express train sets have overhead bins. We left New York City on time. NJ Transit trains also come to the station. Passengers for those trains wait in the old Penn Station. Bye-bye New York City. Our first stop will be Newark, New Jersey.
And please make your way towards the nearest exit. When you exit the train, please watch your steps as you get to the train station platform. This will be the only stop in the state of New Jersey, Newark. Coming up.
We are now departing Newark, New Jersey. Next stop, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
This is side seating, so check your tickets, make sure you're in the right car and the right seat. Philadelphia, first station next, 55 minutes.
Here's what the restrooms are like on the Acela train sets. It's a good thing that they have soap and water running. This bathroom is very clean. This is how you lock the door to the restroom. We were in the car in front of the cafe car. This is where you can get snacks and beverages on the Acela if you are a business class passenger. I spent most of my time here so I can get video clips of both sides of the train, so I kinda used it as an observation car. The Acela Express has the second highest number of ridership on the Amtrak network, right behind the Northeast Regional. The Northeast Regional makes more stops than the Acela and is slower than the Acela. Our train stopped at just big cities on the Northeast Corridor between Boston and Washington, D.C. That's why the Acela is mainly for passengers that travel to or from work, specifically business trips along the Northeast Corridor. These are controls on the seats in business class. We are traveling over 100 miles per hour. There are light controls on the top, kinda like an airplane. There is also a curtain to block the sunlight. During the making of this video, I was not the only passenger on board making social media content. So this is a friend that I just met on the Amtrak Acela Express. His name is Milan, and he has an account called Milan Likes Trains on Instagram where he posts his train content on Instagram. So why did you take the train?
Yeah, so it started off as a sustainability thing. So as many people probably know, traveling by train is way more sustainable than flying. And I'm from Europe, where we have a quite dense railway network, at least in a lot of places. And so I figured, the train is a viable alternative on a lot of routes, and I wanted to cut down my carbon footprint. I wanted to travel more sustainably, and so taking the train, basically, I started taking the train wherever I could, because I used to really fly a lot. But since then, now it's mainly become a thing of, I really like traveling by train. I think it's a very convenient way of traveling. Obviously you start in the city center, you end in the city center, that's great, but also the trip itself, you get to see, the landscape passing. I think you just mentioned you didn't realize how scenic a trip from New York to DC would be, right?
That's right.
So that's really cool. You get to work if you have to work, you get to just, relax if you have to relax. So, I don't know, I just think it's a very pleasant way of traveling.
Alright. So make sure you follow him on Instagram.
It's Milan Likes Trains.
That's right. Go follow him. And Milan is right. Traveling on high-speed train is smoother than flying. If you fly, there is a possibility of turbulence. The Acela is also an energy-efficient way of traveling along the Northeast Corridor because it draws power from the overhead lines. That means it is electric. We are closing in on Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here we are, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. During these stops in big cities, some people get on board and some people get off the train. The Acela doesn't stay in the station stops for long. During the making of this video, the Acela was on the verge of being replaced with a new Amtrak high-speed train set called the Acela Liberty. Because I was busy making this video clip, I missed the chance of seeing them in the yard outside 30th Street Station, and I apologize for that.
Now we're having Philadelphia 13 station, and you can grab a great thing. This is
We left Philadelphia with a small delay because a family with an elderly person needed help getting off the train. Since I helped get one of their luggage off the train, I wasn't able to record the departure from Philadelphia on time. Our next stop will be Wilmington, Delaware. The Northeast Corridor is the busiest corridor on the Amtrak network because it travels through a densely populated area, and some of America's famous cities are connected by the Northeast Corridor, like New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. But the equipment on the Northeast Corridor is aging. The track was built by multiple railroads, and it was electrified from 1905 to 1938. Today, the Northeast Corridor is one of the few tracks in the country that Amtrak owns, while in most places, freight companies own the tracks. Since the Acela was a corridor train, when booking this trip, there were multiple Acela trains leaving at different times, so finding a time that works for you won't be hard at all. We picked the 9 o'clock Acela. Since Amtrak owns the Northeast Corridor, Amtrak trains have priority, but they have to share it with multiple commuter trains around the big cities on the Northeast Corridor, and freight trains use the lines too. This is the Amtrak maintenance depot near Wilmington. We are now pulling into Wilmington, Delaware. The station in Wilmington is where President Joe Biden used to board the Acela when traveling to Washington, D.C. That's why they gave him the nickname Amtrak Joe. Here's a picture of Joe Biden and his wife Jill boarding the train in D.C. to return to their home in Wilmington. decided to get myself an apple juice in the cafe car. We now left Wilmington. Our next stop will be Baltimore, Maryland. They have water dispensers on the train. The Acela train set began development in the 1990s and into the 2000s. Its first name was going to be the American Flyer, but they changed it to the Acela. The Acela was launched in the year 2000. Amtrak later changed their logo to the one you would see today. At the time, it was the only high-speed train in North America, until Brightline began service in South Florida from Miami and West Palm Beach, serving Aventura, Fort Lauderdale, and Boca Raton. By late 2023, they are going to begin service between West Palm Beach and Orlando. The trains are going to reach over 100 miles per hour. We are cruising.
Make your way towards nearest exit.
We are now arriving in Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore's Penn Station sits between two sets of tunnels. These tunnels are very old and they are the NEC's bottleneck. If you are wondering why Amtrak Superliner coaches don't come through the Northeast Corridor, this is the reason why. Well, except in DC because the Capital Limited to Chicago has double-decker Superliners, but it takes a different route to the west right after leaving DC. We are now arriving in Baltimore's Penn Station. On the opposite side of the platform is ACS 64-600 named David L. Gunn. David L. Gunn is a transportation system administrator. He led several significant railroads and transit systems in North America.
This is John calling me right now.
We are now leaving Baltimore's Penn Station. Next stop, Baltimore's Thurgood Marshall Airport.
Okay, yes, you're at the check-in.
This is Baltimore's Thurgood Marshall Airport. Next stop, Washington, D.C. There's the DC Metro. That means we are getting close to Washington, DC. We are now closing in on Washington, D.C.'s Union Station. In Washington, D.C.'s Union Station, there is a special platform for Acela Express train sets. The Acela Express train sets are really reliable on the NEC. We actually arrived on time. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to follow Milan Likes Trains on Instagram and subscribe if you haven't for more JT on the Go. This is JT on the Go signing off at DC's Union Station.